The current clear-cut gender fashion conventions did not take hold until the 20th century. Below are 20 things about that and other fascinating historic traditions from around the world. The tradition of little boys in shorts and little girls in dresses. Boys wear shorts or pants, and girls wear dresses, which is as traditional as it gets. Or is it? For centuries, it was common to dress little boys and little girls the same, in dresses. There were practical reasons for that. Kids grow fast, and dresses allowed more room for growth before they were completely outgrown than did pants. It was not until after the end of WWI that the current convention of dressing little, according to gender, finally took hold. Ancient Roman funeral traditions. Long before those traits became associated with the Brits, ancient Roman were into stiff upper lips and frowned upon excessive displays of emotion. However, an excessive display of grief by the deceased's relatives, especially when it came to upper-class Roman families. To square that circle, professional mourners were hired. Such excessive displays eventually got out of hand, so the hiring of professional mourners was made illegal. World War II's most viral tradition. Occasionally, nowadays, graffiti of a long-nosed bald guy peeping over a wall can be spotted, usually accompanied by the caption, "Kilroy was here." GIs competed to try and tag the most obscure, out-of-the-way, and unlikely locations with the picture and text that Kilroy had been there. Kilroy had apparently been everywhere. US soldiers who stormed enemy beaches claimed to have seen notices that Kilroy had been there ahead of them. To this day, it is not clear just where the viral "Kilroy was here" tradition got started. The Ottoman tradition of wedding splurging Hatice Sultan, 1660-1743, daughter of Sultan Mehmed IV and sister of Sultans Mustafa II and Ahmed III, had an epic wedding. The wedding took place in Edirne and lasted for 20 days. Hatice's dowry contained thousands of gifts and was carried by 86 mules covered in expensive fabrics. The psychotically violent traditions of ancient Rome. We often assume that people thousands of years ago were just technologically deprived versions of us. They were born and raised in a different world, with different mental and moral landscapes. Which explains how otherwise normal people back in the day could spend entire days in places like Rome's Colosseum, watching other humans get killed in various gruesome ways for fun. Nero burning Rome was responsible for public punishment of Christians. They suspected that the Christians had started the fire, or at least spread it, and demanded that they be punished. So Christians were arrested, and Nero ordered a spectacle to make an example of them. The traditional accounts of Christians being fed to lions at the Colosseum. The imagery of Christian martyrs being fed to lions became, and remains, an art and cultural trope. The tradition of grave robbing for medical research and study. Medical research and education in the 1700s relied heavily upon corpse dissection. So doctors stole cadavers from fresh graves, or paid grave robbers to do so. Thousands of New Yorkers attacked doctors' homes and even the city's jail, where the authorities had moved the doctors for their own protection. When obesity was celebrated today, the weight loss industry's profits grow steadily in lockstep with the steady growth of our waistlines. When food and leisure were scarce, to be chunky indicated good fortune, and throughout history, the fortunate have loved to showcase their good fortune. That explains the rise of fat men's clubs in late 19th and early 20th century America, when well-to-do fat men got together to celebrate and showcase their obesity. Membership was contingent on weight, usually a 200 pounds minimum. In ancient Middle East, to kiss the shoe or foot of a ruler was a ritualized display of submission to his authority. That belief in the shoe or foot as symbolic of authority eventually made it to Europe. In medieval France, for example, kings required vassals to kiss their feet as a demonstration of allegiance. He granted Normandy to Rollo the Viking in exchange for the latter's agreement to become Charles's vassal, become a Christian, and fight off other Vikings. To seal the deal, attendant bishops urged Rollo to kiss the king's foot as a display of fealty. Rollo adamantly refused to kiss another man's foot. Instead, he ordered one of his warriors to kiss the royal foot on his behalf. The parts of the world where shoes are traditionally seen as especially unclean. In Islamic culture, Footwear is left at mosque entrances because of the association of shoes with uncleanliness. Accordingly, they are removed in the presence of God to show respect and submission. There, it is offensive to show others one's shoe sole, and to throw footwear at or hit somebody with it is a grave insult. Elsewhere in the world, however, as seen below, throwing shoes at people is seen as a good thing. The parts of the world where shoes are traditionally seen as good luck. In contrast to the Middle Eastern cultural perspective that throwing a shoe at somebody is a deadly insult. Shifts in medical and cultural traditions about beards. After generations of being out of fashion in the West, beards have become stylish lately, thanks in no small part to hipsters. It is not the first time that beards fell out of fashion, then made a comeback. In archaic and early classical Greece, beards were stylish, but they went out of fashion in the Hellenistic era. By the 16th and 17th centuries, medical opinions deemed facial hair to be bodily waste. Then came the 19th century when beards roared back into style in a big way. Much of that had to do with the Victorian ideal of rugged manliness, and beards are clear visual markers of maleness. Also, doctors reasoned that thick facial hair could filter out bad air and the bad little particulates that floated in it. In reality, as we now know, beards can't filter air. Harmful germs and aerial pollutants are too small for facial hair to block them. Throughout much of history, life was rough, as in orders of magnitude tougher than what we experience today, for the majority of mankind. The ancient Greeks, for example, often abandoned unwanted children in the wilderness. The Spartan government in particular ramped up infanticide into eugenics as a matter of state policy. The goal was to produce strong warriors to maintain Sparta's military dominance. Thousands of years later, a eugenics movement arose and had its heyday in the late 19th and first half of the 20th centuries. Modern eugenicists looked back at history and, filled with admiration for Spartan manliness and hardihood, figured that the ancient Spartans were onto something.